Chapter 1. The hours were composed mostly of dull or rebellious moments during the period of Theodore's engagement to Mr. Brown. From the very first, she had thought it hard that she should have had to take this situation, instead of Sarah or Clementine, her elder stepsisters, so much nearer his age than herself. To do them justice, either of these ladies would have been glad to relieve her of the obligation to become Mrs. Brown, but Mr. Brown thought otherwise. A young and beautiful wife was what he bargained for. To enter a family composed of 3 girls, 2 of the first family, one almost 30, and a second very plain, a father with a habit of accumulating debts and obliged to live at Bruges and inexpensive foreign seaside towns, required a strong motive. And this Josiah Brown found in the deliciously rounded white velvet cheek of Theodora, the 3rd daughter, to say nothing of her slender grace, the grace of a young fawn, and a pair of gentian blue eyes that said things to people in the first glance. Poor, foolish, handsome Dominic Fitzgerald, light-hearted, debonair Irish gentleman, gay and gallant on his miserable pension of a broken and retired guardsman, had had just sufficient sense to insist upon magnificent settlements, certainly prompted thereto by Clementine, who inherited the hard-headedness of the early defunct Scotch mother, as well as her high cheekbones. That affair had been a youthful mésalliance. "You had better see we all gain something by it, Papa," she had said. "Make the old bore give Theodora a huge allowance, and have it all fixed and settled by law beforehand. She is such a fool about money, just like you. She will shower it upon us, and you make him pay you a sum down as well." Captain Fitzgerald fortunately consulted an honest solicitor, and so things were arranged to the satisfaction of all parties concerned, except Theodora herself, who found the whole affair far from her taste. That one must marry a rich man if one got the chance to help poor, darling Papa had always been part of her creed, more or less inspired by Papa himself. But when it came to the scratch and Josiah Brown was offered as a husband, Theodora had had to use every bit of her nerve and self-control to prevent herself from refusing. She had not seen many men in her 19 years of out-at-elbows life, but she had imagination, and the 1 or 2 peeps at smart old friends of Papa's, landed from stray yachts now and then at out-of-the-way French watering places, had given her an ideal far, far removed from the personality of Josiah Brown. But, as Sarah explained to her, such men could never be husbands. They might be lovers if one was fortunate enough to move in their sphere, but husbands never. And there was no use Theodora protesting this violent devotion to darling Papa if she could not do a small thing like marrying Josiah Brown for him. Theodora's beautiful mother, dead in the first year of her runaway marriage, had been the daughter of a stiff-necked, unforgiving old earl. She had bequeathed her child, besides these gentian eyes and wonderful silvery blonde hair, a warm, generous heart, and more or less romantic temperament. The heart was touched by darling Papa's needs, and the romantic temperament revolted by Josiah Brown's personality. However, there it was. The marriage took place at the consulate Dieppe, and a perfectly miserable little bride got into the train for Paris, accompanied by a fat, short, prosperous, middle-class English husband, who had accumulated a large fortune in Australia quite by accident in a comparatively few years. Josiah Brown was only 52, though his head was bald and his figure far from slight. He had a liver, a chest, and a temper, and he adored Theodora. Captain Fitzgerald had felt a few qualms when he had wished his little daughter goodbye on the platform and had seen the blue stars swimming with tears. The 2 daughters left to him were so plain, and he hated plain people about him. But, on the other hand, women must marry, and what chance had he, poor, unlucky devil, of establishing his Theodora better in life? Josiah Brown was a good fellow, and he, Dominic Fitzgerald, had for the first time for many years a comfortable balance at his bankers, and could run up to Paris himself in a few days. And who knows, the American widow, fabulously rich Jane Anastasia McBride, might take him seriously. Captain Dominic Fitzgerald was irresistible and had that fortunate knack of looking like a gentleman in the oldest clothes. If married for the third time, but this time prosperously, to a fabulously rich American, his well-born relations would once more welcome him with open arms, he felt sure, and visions of the best pheasant shoots at Old Beachley and partridge drives at Rothering Castle floated before his eyes, quite obscuring the fading smoke of the Paris train. A pretty tough, dull affair, marriage, he said to himself, reminded once more of Theodora by treading on a white rose in the station. Hope to heavens Sarah prepared her for it a bit. Then he got into a fiacre and drove to the hotel, where he and the two remaining Mrs. Fitzgerald were living in the style of their forefathers. Josiah Brown's valet, Mr. Toplington, who knew the world, had engaged rooms for the happy couple at the Grand Hotel. We'll go to the Ritz on our way back, he decided. But at first, in case there's scenes and tears, it's better to be a number than a name. Mademoiselle Henriette, the freshly engaged French maid, quite agreed with him. The Grand, she said, was plus convenable pour une lune de miel. A lune de miel. End of chapter 1.